hour before this broadcast. So y'all bear with me. It's a little naked. But I have not done anything with Pumpkin on this yet, Pumpkin Pro. So we're going to actually just, you know how we do. We dabble around. We find out what feels good. You'll hear me because when I get the moments, you'll hear me respond. All right. So let's see here. I guess I can at least start with where we want to make sure that the audio is good. So let me know in the chat. I'm gonna play just the music real quick. Let me know if everything sounds the way it should sound. Like music ain't too loud, the vocals ain't too loud or too low, either or. And then we'll get started. All right. Testing, 1, 2, 3. I can actually pull this a little closer to me. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'm here for it. All right. Okay. So far, no one's saying that the audio is bad, so that's a good thing. All right. That sounds good. All right. I'm gonna let me turn my headphones down. That way I don't end up touching stuff I shouldn't. Okay, Pumpkin Pro. So, and I actually will turn the music down a little bit. Hopefully I don't forget to turn it back up. If I do, let me know in the chat. All right, let me get on to it. So Pumpkin Pro, as you know, or may not have been aware, but they came out with Pumpkin free. And actually, let me pull that up here, Pumpkin free, so you can see what the differences are between the two. And I pray I do not get a crash. It might happen because it just happened a moment ago. But Pumpkin, the regular Pumpkin here, right? So they look a lot alike, except that Pumpkin Pro has, well, let's talk about that. So with the regular Pumpkin, we got one saturator, right? And we got a low shelf and a high shelf. With Pumpkin Pro, it's quite a bit more, right? We got one, as opposed to just the up to 8x, we have up to 64x with the anti-aliasing. I know the word. That's crazy. All right. But we also have a mid-band EQ here, right along with the high shelf and the low shelf. So that makes sculpting tones with this saturator that much more greater. Up at the top, we got definitely from Pumpkin, we got 4 different curves of saturation. In Pumpkin Pro, we have 27. Now, I heard the concerns about jam, and we're going to actually take a look at that a little later on. I just downloaded Jam for the first time, did not want to, and now I want it. But I heard I downloaded Jam, installed it for the first time yesterday, and I believe I understand what the differences are. It's still a saturation thing, but the difference between Pumpkin Pro and Jam is that there is no preamp. There's no analog preamp here. So this has no color to it, so to speak, right? That's the difference between the two. But I did see quite a number of some of the saturation curves in it. But anyway, you get that, right? And of course you get double the saturation. Now, what's interesting here is this negative and positive shape option. I'm not even sure what to think about that. And I recognize it's talking about the waveform. You got the top of the waveform and the bottom of the waveform, and you're able to shape those independently. That is, man, that's crazy. That we're able to do that. So that's a little different than maybe some other plugins in that regards. And I did see somebody's recent post about another plugin that is set up similar to this one. And if you know what I'm talking about, I did a review on that plugin and it was stellar. This is Acustica's take on it. So that's that. All right. So we kind of know what the controls are. Again, the only differences between the two is that you get twice the saturation, right? You get the shape option for the positive and the negative values on your waveform. This middle section, of course, that's where the the actual what do you call it, the wave file. And here, let's do this. I'll just turn it on while we chat, and I pray it does not crash. All right, let me turn off regular pumpkin. Uh-oh, it's gonna do me bad already. I know it. Oh, there we go. Woo, thank God. um and let me turn off some of this other processing. I got a little happy with some of the other plugins. Now this thing is pretty heavy from what I'm seeing right now. Look up here at our CPU meter. We're at 67. So if I bypass it, yeah, it drops all the way down to 13 in this case. So this one is mighty heavy. Regular pumpkin is heavy, but not as heavy, right? Because it only has the one stage of saturation in it. But anyway, so yeah, we definitely have some additional options with this, and this thing is heavy, so do not expect me to try this on a bunch of tracks. It's just not going to happen. We're at the lowest aliasing on here, or at the lowest oversampling, which is 1x, which is not no oversampling at all, right? And I don't even have the second. Let's see, we turn that on. Okay, so it's still sitting at 67 up here with our CPU. But let's talk about this just for a second. All right, it's more of a static saturator, is what Acustica was saying in the Facebook group. It's more of a static saturator as opposed to having the preamps. And I guess, and I haven't done a lot with jam yet. Literally, I tried it yesterday. It has flavor to it, a flavor I freaking like. Man, I opened that thing up. But it's trying to emulate different saturation from hardware. This isn't trying to do that. And I recognized that when I was flipping through it, like, okay, so when I turn this off, there's not the usual, what do you call it? I want to say it's like a euphoric feeling from the preamps. It reminds me of how analog sounds, right? You don't get that with this, so it's more static. Now that's not to say that they won't implement some of the technology that's in this into jam. Who knows? I hope that is the case. And I'm hoping that it goes on sale for Black Friday. That is jam, because I have to have that. All right. So what does this thing sound like? Now, before I get to that, let me check the comments here. All right. So we stopped that level. It's great. All right. Already my question is, damn, you just took the thought right out of my head about jam as I was typing it. So let me do that real quick. I pray this thing stays in one piece. I'm not going to review jam. I won't even play any music through it, but I do want to take a look at some of the similarities between them. Now, I did not add jam to my list because I do not own it. But as you can see, we have it freshly installed here. And I think it was the jam, nope, not jam mix, it was the regular jam. So let me do a new version here just in case things fall to pieces. And let's load this up. All right, so this is jam. Now, it's not the same scan, of course, but when I started snooping around, I did see some similarities. And again, this was really my first time opening up jam. So, of course, this doesn't have the anti-aliasing tech in here, but it does have some other oversampling tech. And then down here at the bottom, this is the preamp section. This is where the color comes from, and the color here is nice, man. Of course, you get a high shelf and a low shelf EQ, just like you do on Pumpkin, right? But you get high pass and low pass here, so we don't have that in Pumpkin. We don't have the preamps at all in Pumpkin, so it's just straight dry. Now, looking at the list here, yep, it looks like almost the same. So Buff Coffee Crimson, 4 different versions. Buff Coffee Crimson. So it's using the same saturation curves, but um minus the preamp, which has the EQ in it as well. So, and again, this is It's touted as being a little different, more like dynamic saturation as opposed to static saturation. All of that said from acoustic audio, not my words. All right. Okay, so that's that. And I don't think there's really too many other differences here between the two. Oh, yeah, we don't have this um, in Pumpkin, and I don't really know what that is because I haven't reviewed or looked up, researched, or anything for Jam at at all. All right, so I'm gonna delete that. Hopefully, it doesn't flip out on me. I'm gonna delete Pumpkin. Okay. Now, I would imagine that this works better in Reaper, of course, because Reaper is the god for handling plugins. And so if you have Reaper, let me know if you've tested this in Reaper, how it performs. But I'm just doing this in FL Studio for various reasons. One, I just threw this record together, so it's like, just go at it, bro. All right, so we have this saturator. We have two levels of saturation. So let's start with it off. Now I'm gonna play the whole little thing that I got here before we turn on Pumpkin and do the dabbling. So here we go. Nope, nope, nope. Hey, let me turn it back up. She walked right out my life, cut me down with a bloody knife, ran away with my soul, played me like a tune on the radio. All right. Now I recognize that I'm glad I took nickel off, because that would be heavy, right? As a matter of fact, let me turn Mystic off. Oh yeah, see, our meter is in the red now, so I do love how nickel sounds on this record, but it's just not going to fly with the CPU. Okay, so what else we got here? Don't think that's going to fly either. I'm trying to stay out of the red, man, so let's just stick with the stuff that is supposed to be. Yes, I agree. Brainwashed This Way says it's convolution tech, not regular algorithmic tech. Convolution is always processor intensive. Indeed. That said, Acustica stuff has gotten him less heavy on processor and has gotten heart is in the way, has gotten much less heavy on processor in the last year and a half. Agreed. They have definitely been up in their game as far as CPU. Like with Salt, Salt was light enough that I could throw it on every track and have literally a functional CPU easy console. But this thing is definitely heavy. It is not light at all. This is by itself. It's peaking at 66%. And if I disable it, this is what's left from the plugins, the audio, not audio, I have two copies of Superior Drummer. One is drums, one is percussion, and a bass. Right, so these are what's taking up the processing, at least in the still state. So that's it. So we're looking at 55% when we turn on Pumpkin Pro, right? So we go from 10 to, yeah, 60, 63, somewhere up there. So it's pretty heavy, which does not lend it to putting on more than one track, really, at the end of the day, which is a shame, but it is what it is. And perhaps even in Reaper, it may function even more less. It may function with less CPU. But enough of me talking. Let's get on to how this thing sounds, right? I did dabble with this a little bit, and oh my goodness. I know Pumpkin is similar, but the options that they give you in this thing is ridiculous. Some of the stuff was just crazy, right? So let's play with Pumpkin Pro. She walked right out my life. Now, I'm gonna mute the vocals right now because I want to I really want to see what it sounds like on the music so far. All right, so we are now listening to Pumpkin Pro. Right, so if I bypass this, There's no color there. There's no color there. All right. As opposed to jam, when you bypass it, there's color there from the, if you have the preamps activated. So, all right. So this here, now we're already doing some saturation. Let's drive on into this thing. Woo. That's full hard mode there. It's not really soft. So I want to go through some of these. I'll push it a little bit more. There we go. I want to go through some of these. That one sounds a little more punchier. Then we have coffee. Now that thing is heavy. Wow. I might have to pull up the manual for really understanding the effects of the positive and negative, not compression, saturation. All right, so moving on. Oh yeah, you hear the fuzzies in there now. Yes. Sometimes you want that. I'm sorry. I love when they get fuzzy for certain stuff. All right. Skip through some of these crimson ones. And let me shut up for a minute and just run through this and let y'all hear what's going on. Ooh. Ooh. Hold up. All right. Now, something I was doing in Pumpkin was driving the input. And then pulling these back. And as you can see, we are saturating, right? But it's very subtle. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Let's see. What else we got here? All right. So we just kind of running through them and seeing what they do. Just the sides. Wow. Oh. Ooh. Dang heavy. All right, so let's find one that goes with this record. What is this? Stardust. Kind of like how that sounds. Ooh, it gave it way more weight. All right, so I'm gonna lighten. Oh, not that much. Right there. All right, so listen to the kick. Sounds kind of, I always use this term, paperish. Still got a little paperish to it, but I think it definitely has more weight now. All right, so now let's dig into the EQ. Now we know about the low shelf and the high shelf, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and push this, see what it do. All right. Here's that mid band. Matter of fact, let's take off the low band. Oh, let me put it back on the whole thing. Interesting. So it took some of the prickliness out of the. Listen to how the claps sound when they're bypassed. You can hear the skin, right? Real prickly. Of course, I took the bottom out, so that makes a huge difference. And we're pushing it to hell right now, so. But even here, all right. Ooh. Let me switch this over to the Hyper EQ. Oh yeah, we got a little increase in the CPU. Oh. Now I'm afraid to actually switch over to the. All right, let me stop it. It is quite heavy compared to some of the recent plugins from Acustica. But let me see what happens to the CPU meter when we go to 8x anti-aliasing. All right. Whoa. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. I don't even know if it's going to even play. Okay, we're still there. I tell you what, maybe my ears are messing with me. Nah, I hear what I hear. Just like I did in the Ash Ultra video. If you listen to the before and after, where I did the 1x and the 8x, there you hear some clarity being brought into the plugin, switching from 1x to 8x. Now again, when you don't have this stuff on, the aliasing is not there, at least not the aliasing, of course, from that plugin. But when you do turn it on and you switch from the 1x oversampling to the 8x anti-aliasing, you should hear a clarity, a certain clarity if you're focused in on it, right? And that's what I believe I'm hearing. I could be fooling myself, right? But anyway, we know what we're talking about here as far as what's being cleaned up, right? It's that high prickly stuff that just is swirls around, especially with synths. You can hear it all day on a synth that's that high, and you're pushing up against basically a wall, right? That's where aliasing comes in. All right, now we have two of these saturators that we can use. So let's do that. On with the bloody night, ran away with my soul. Played me like a tune on the radio. Oh, there it is. We have reached the limit. All right, let me stop it. Take the 8x off. All right, and most of that is, again, that's because I got, well, no, not really, is it? All right, let's go back to the master. All right, now we should be able to play it from here. She walked right out my life. So let's choose a different saturation. Ran away with my soul. Played me like a tune on the radio. She walked right out my life. Wait a minute. Cut me down with the bloody knife. Ran away with my soul. Played me like a tune on the radio. So of course we're saturating the saturation. Cut me down with the bloody knife. Ran away with my soul. Played me like a tune on the radio. She walked right out my life. Cut me down with the bloody knife. Ran away with my soul. Played me like a tune on the radio. All right, now I did want to, now that I'm saying how heavy this is probably, again, unless I do it in Reaper, I wanted to see what the vocals would sound like with that flavor of, let's just stick with the lead for right now, y'all. Bear with me. She walked right out my life, cut me down with a bloody knife, ran away with my soul, played me like a tune on the radio. A little something there. She all right, I'm going to reset the EQ. My life, cut me down with a bloody knife. On? Ran yes, it is. Away with my soul, played me like a tune on the radio. Yes, right there. She walked right out my life, cut me down with a bloody knife, ran away with my soul, played me like a tune on the radio. All right, let me try Smoke. Right out my life. This one was heavy last time I checked. Cut me down with a bloody knife, ran away with my soul, played me like a tune on the radio. She walked right out my life, cut me down with a bloody knife, ran away with my soul, played now, me like how I would use this, I would definitely be mixing a record like this in Reaper. So what I would do is, after I've done quite a bit of stuff, and maybe even depending on how this performs in Reaper, actually we'll do that test. This, the level of customizable, the level of the custom level that you can get out of this. Let's just make it easy. The custom levels of saturation would make it very nice to just put on that lead vocal like I'm doing here, because sometimes I want to get the vocal to growl, right? And I think I'm kind of stuck on that from hearing it with Neve preamps, kind of that kind of growl to it. And actually I forget who it was. It's a gentleman on YouTube. I think his name is Clint. I had sent my music in to get it reviewed on his YouTube channel, and that was one of the things, and it wasn't this record, but it was one of the things that he wished the vocals had on it, and I do too. Was a little more saturation, that distorted growl, Neve type stuff going on there. And I was trying to kind of lay a lead down that would favor that, and this is right now doing the trick. Unfortunately, I can't use it in here the way I want to, because if I have one on the master and I have one on the lead, we're gonna be stuck here. So that's not going to happen. But all right, let us do something real quick here. Let me give me 1 second. Do I have that? I hope I did. Okay. Yep, just remembered you can't hear me if I go to that screen. So here, I'll do it this way. Instead of going through the madness of trying to get it on screen and everything, actually, we can do it another way. We can go to the Aquarius desktop and pull it up from there. So let me do that. Let me make sure I got you guys back. Okay, you are back on screen. So I'm going to go into the Pumpkin Pro, and then I'm going to go to the user manual, and then that will pull that up, right? And then we can look at the manual. So I'm curious about the negative and the positive and what I'm supposed to be listening for. I understand what it's supposed to be working on, but I would like to know what the intention is in that regard. All right, so we have here, that's all the EQ stuff. Don't look like they have anything written up about it in here, or did I just miss it? We know that the pre is to push into the saturation, and then the post is after the saturation, but man, I must be missing it then. Let me go up some more here. Listening modes, size, different modes, the shape slider, change the shape of the distortion curve. You can make the distortion, right? Well, we know that. So it doesn't really touch on, at least in the manual, how that's working, the negative and positive part of your waveform. It doesn't touch on that, but it's probably worth a question in the Facebook group for Acustica Audio, right? All right, well, that's that. I wasn't expecting it to really give me too much information anyway. But the other thing, of course, was Reaper, right? So let us pull up Reaper, and I think I got the latest version. Yeah, we're going to have to wait through that because it's got to take its time. In the meantime, I guess I could at least turn on some music, right? What happened here? We turned everything off. Ooh, that is distorting. All right, so let's lighten up on all of this. All right. That's still, there we go. Oh yeah, we have the input so damn high. just now listen. Listen as I do this. No fuzz, a little fuzz, no more fuzz. Oh, oh my goodness. So many levels of what you can do with all of this. What is the flame vintage? So all of this definitely has more fuzz to it. Then there's this negative drive. What is that all about? Okay. Ooh, way too much. All right. I think another thing I would do too is I would probably process the lead vocal and freeze it, right? Or make a duplicate of it and apply the processing in order to save CPU cycles in that regard. FL Studio's not good for that. I mean, it does have its functions and whatnot, but it's nothing like a regular linear DAW. This is mostly what I use for quick stuff like this, just throwing something together, right? It gets out of the way as far as recording. I literally can just hit the record button and it'll create a new clip. Boom, 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 right? Just different stuff. So it helps in that regard. All right, so let's see. We're still waiting on Reaper. Is it loaded? It probably done more than likely pulled up a previous. Yep, I think it's doing just that. It's pulling up a previous session, which I don't even know what. Oh, that's the. Yeah, we didn't want that. Well, you know what? Let's leave it there. That's the Soul for Soul song that we did Salt with, and Mystic, I believe. But here, I'm going to disable the audio engine for FL Studio. Matter of fact, I'll just completely turn that off, and we'll get into some Reaper here. Right? Okay. So, what did I do here? Let me see how much stuff we got running. CPU is pretty low. Right now, it's not coming out of that because I don't have here. Coming out of voice meter. That's if we're doing recording and we're streaming today. So come out of the audience interface. And then what's going on, buddy? Oh, that looks like a crash. It's not gonna be nice to me today. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I will actually take Salt off here, and I'm just testing the CPU at this point, right? Pumpkin Pro. I wouldn't dare turn on the zero latency. Goodness. Need a whole nother PC for that. All right, so you see how much more efficient this thing runs? Man, that's crazy. So we said it was 50%, 55% was the general CPU usage in FL Studio. This is only running it up to the real-time CPU anyway at 12%. So let me do this. I'm going to close that. I am going to actually kill all of whatever processing I have here. Right? That too. And I think that's everything. I could be wrong. Oh, I'm so wrong, aren't I? Oh, that's the vocal bus. That's the drums. That's the music. And then the vocals. And then there is some additional. Okay. So I think we got everything. Oh, the hook. Okay, so we don't have any more plugins from the looks of it on besides the reverb, which I'm not too concerned about. But I will, however, we'll take those off too. So if I then disable this, Dropping down to 7%, 6%. All right, so roughly 6%. And then when we actually turn it on, give it a little second. So about 10%, around 10%, maybe a little less than that, that we're getting in Reaper. So it would be more useful in Reaper, of course. And this is my DAW for mixing. There is no other DAW on the market that handles plugins and does what Reaper does. But this is not a Reaper video. Um, so yeah, we definitely would get a little bit more mileage out of Reaper with with Pumpkin. I'm gonna tell that no. Right, and we'll go back to FL Studio. I am curious, but I'm also leery about Cubase 13 because so far Cubase 13 has not been fun or friendly for me. um, say AA stuff runs pretty decent in Bitwig. That is still one DAW that I have not dabbled with it, and I think because it reminds me of Ableton. And while I find that Ableton's capabilities are awesome, and maybe even Bitwig, it's just a it's kind of a different workflow for me, and I got enough workflows that I don't need a new one. Um, let's see. Let's open up the Opal session here. Now I do still have Opal coming up. Let me tell you, the longer I take with Opal, the more that thing gives me. I'll point out one of the things that I did. I processed the drums with Opal compressor. I then processed the drum bus with Opal compressor. Then I then processed the master, and this thing blew me the hell away. Like I was trying to get it to do something with just the first run, and man, I could not get it to do anything. And then the longer it took, the more I dialed stuff in. It was just like, oh, what is that? Right. But anyway, we're testing to see um, what Cubase looks like with the CPU for Pumpkin Pro. So far, Reaper is the winner. FL Studio, 50% CPU. Not going to be able to use that in while I'm working on building compositions. I won't be able to use that, at least not in the way that I want. Maybe Pumpkin, the regular Pumpkin, but to have that extra with um, that secondary saturation in there, which sounds lovely, I won't be able to use that like I want. And who knows? They may be able to get the CPU down. I don't know. We'll see. So we're just gonna wait here for a second. I'm thinking that this thing is just long as hell. Come on, buddy. Yeah, 13 has been Cubase 13 has been a thorn in my side so far. And I think they have a maintenance update coming up where, cause like Ultra, Ash Ultra, it wouldn't even pull up. Like I drop it on there, it's just flickering. So I didn't even bother to do anything with Cubase in that regards. Um, Pumpkin was fine, but definitely Ash Ultra was giving me hell. And I'm told that they did something with the code where it works with the hybrid CPUs now. So it's almost a you need to catch up type of thing. But anyway, we want to see what this does in Cubase. And really what I should have did was I don't know why I didn't. I should have just loaded a blank empty program instead of sitting here and making you guys wait while this thing loads this long loading session here. And I'm not even sure why why is Groove Agent even showing up on this thing? That's crazy. I didn't even use Groove Agent. Oh, you know what? I know what that. Okay, never mind that. Let's just do this. Let's do new project, create empty. You gotta love live, don't you? Just everything can go wrong. After this, I'm gonna give my final thoughts on Pumpkin Pro, and then we'll call it a night because I do have to go to bed for work. So I'm gonna add an audio track here. Now, right now, if I hit F12, I think it is. So many dolls. Oh, they must have changed that. What was it? Project. Where are you, friend? Oh, I always forget what stuff is. Performance. All right. Oh, F11. It's F12, somebody else. All right. So no CPU really is running right now. There's nothing on. I don't even think I have my monitor inserts on. They're not. Okay. So nothing is on. They just have they're all bypassed, fully bypassed. All right. So let's go into the mixer. We're on the master track. We're going to pull up Pumpkin Pro and see what we get. All right, now I don't know. It don't ever give you the actual percentages in here, but that looks pretty good. If we do the 8x, which I didn't do in Reaper, but it doubles. It almost doubles, so it's pretty heavy. But it looks like it can definitely be used more in here than definitely than in FL Studio. If I turn on the second saturator, we get more out of it, more CPU usage. And if we stick with the 1x, get a second. All right, so each one of these represents a quarter, right, of percentage, if I'm not mistaken. So this is 14%. So something similar to what we was getting um, in Reaper, but we know Reaper does some other strange things when you start adding additional plugins. All right, man. So that is the overview of Pumpkin Pro. It Yeah, it does remind me of a different plugin, um, but this is the Acustica style of saturation. And I guess what I'm really looking at, like this is all cool and everything, right? The what they've done here and what they're giving us, but I always look at the tech that they come out with as like looking forward, looking to the future in their products, right? Looking to what we can look forward to in future products for Acustica. And so far, they've definitely have improved some of what their intention is with their products, right? So I'm looking forward to really what I'm looking for is you just said something, David. Yes, that that is the one thing with Acustica that I'm still hoping is brought to the table, and that is the server client function. That it's still said that the technology is built into all of their Aqua plugins, but getting it to run, I have not been able to do that, and I've only once in the past actually used it. So it's a little like you go down into, well, on Windows anyway, you go down into your little um into where you have all of your little applications at, and there's a little box down here that when you click on it, this was before, I don't know about now, but when you click on it, it shows you the IP address and how many instances it's running. And it's not like it's pulling up a GUI on the server computer. It was just the CPU being utilized to process the acoustic audio plugins on the server PC. Now, mind you, I had a shit of a secondary computer. It was the computer that I was using before the big one, right? So it didn't do very well, but I got it to freaking run, right? And somewhere along the line in the Facebook group, the Giancarlo stated that it's built in. You can use it now, but I think the problem is it requires some IT thinking, right, to get it to actually work. And I stopped. And actually, the most recent attempt was with Modular. I couldn't get that to run the way with the server client function. So it is what it is. But hopefully, at some point, um, I'm praying they don't forget that part, because if we can get us a secondary computer, I actually have one that's just it's just in pieces right now. To run these things, it would be beautiful. I've been waiting. The only reason I haven't got me a touch screen yet is because of that. If they get that working, oh, I'm going out to get me a touch screen. Is the biggest one that I can find that I can afford, and I'm going to set it up, and I'm going to do some videos on it. So hopefully they get something going with modular by the end of the year, which should solidify the server client option. All right, but enough of that stuff. That's wishful thinking. This was about Pumpkin Pro. And just to recap, Pumpkin Pro is a dual stage saturation of the freely released Pumpkin. I don't even know if you can buy Pumpkin by itself now, or maybe it comes with Pumpkin Pro. I don't know. That's a good question. Like, can you even get Pumpkin anymore? I know Acustica definitely does limited edition of certain plugins where you won't be able to get it anymore. Like, we still have, I think, oh, I forget the name of the EQ, but there was an EQ they came out with. It was a limited edition. If you didn't buy it then, you won't get it, and they refused to re-release that thing. um, but anyway, Pumpkin Pro. I love what the second stage of saturation, because it's saturating the saturation, does, and to be able to process stuff through that, as even as a offline effect, um, that would be beautiful. And you know what? Yes, you did just say something about doubling your instances at least. So using two pumpkins, right, would kind of get you what you have here, but you, of course, you don't get all of the extra options here, right? You only get four with the regular pumpkin, and you don't get the mid band or the negative and positive shape options. But that is definitely something that I can consider by having pumpkin. I don't have Pumpkin Pro. This is the trial. Um, but with the regular pumpkin, I can sort of get what we have in that regards. All right. So before I go, let me just peruse the comments here. See if there's anything that I need to address. I'm going to scroll back up and let's see here. Um, mm, 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 mm. Going back to Nebula. Yeah, my man said Nebula 2 Pro. Oh my goodness. Can I tell a quick story, man? I'm gonna get off after this. I had a Core 2 Duo, I think it was, or it might have been um, before that. This is my Nebula story. This is my Acustica story. I was dabbling with the Nebula Free, like, oh, okay, they doing convolution. And at that time, I still had some of the Focusrite stuff in my mind, who was doing that type of where they were, sampling and emulating hardware gear, right? And I got a hold of this Nebula stuff, and I was like, oh, this is pretty dope. With the free version, it was the one, it was called Analog Channel. That was always the one I was going to, because it put me in the mind of SSL, and I found out, if I'm not mistaken, it's been many years, that was an SSL channel that was sampled. Besides back then having the loud spikes in the audio, it was a moment where I understood what I was listening to, and it clicked just like that. And I'll probably tell this story again on something later, but it made me realize that, okay, wait a minute. If I can somehow get this to work, I can have that analog sound without having to go out and either rent a studio to get that sound or buy the thing myself. And it was like, oh my God. At that point, I bought um it wasn't was it Nebula Pro? The first one I bought was Nebula Server Edition, right? And that was the one that had the server client application with it. I forgot, I paid some nice money for that thing, but I was stoked about it. And then I got a hold of the third party libraries. That did it. That did it. After that, it was a wrap, man. It was like, okay, this is the route that I'm going. We can start putting all of these other plugins up. I started deleting plugins out of my system because I wanted that sound. And ever since then, I have been stuck on Acustica Audio's products. Right. So that's how and that was, that had to have been 2000 and, so 2000 and I want to say 10, but it might have been a little later than that. But yeah. So anyway, if you are interested in Acustica Audio's Pumpkin Pro, I will copy and paste the link in the description because I don't think that I did it, but I will do that. And you can try it for yourself. It's a 30-day free trial on all of their plugins. So you have a whole month to dibble and dabble around and see what their plugins is all about. I'm looking forward to their next channel strip. Their next channel strip, I'm going to get that. I'm going to find a way. Until next time, you've been watching Yish in your ear. Stay tuned.